Well, welcome there. Welcome to week 11, the album journal. We can finally get things started here. First 10 weeks were the pilot period, the warm-up period. Now here in week 11, we can begin in full. I've been mostly this week planning progress for the upcoming weeks leading up to the album. 11 weeks after this, I've gotten quite a lot done this week that I'll be showing off a little bit of later. One aspect of it at least. And I've laid out at least a rough plan of what I'm going to be doing over the next 11 weeks. Assuming the last week or two is going to be actually recording and finishing up and releasing the album. But this week, topic was attention, and the big grand thing I was looking at. I find it to be a very important topic within psychology and life, which is why it's the main, like the one main thing I'm looking at here with the album, and like the main theme of the album. As well this week, I spent some time actually writing down and expanding on all the themes of the album and some things I want, like overall with the way it sounds in the end and everything, and the way it looks in the end with the video and everything. Really defining the end goal as the course of this and next week. But yeah, attention. And with that, Yeah. So I'm gonna play two versions of the same song that I recorded yesterday on my birthday. Happy birthday to me. I learned how to play Happy Birthday on guitar. It's the first riff I've ever learned. It's gonna be like sort of the focus of the third album, learning riffs and solos and stuff. I can't play it very well. I'm not gonna play it right now, but I can play it. I'm going to be learning more stuff like that. I recorded myself singing and playing this song, Attention, on brand. It was, let's see, I wrote it summer of 2022 after coming home from the UK and the 2000 Trees festival I've talked about. Got a shirt, by the way. It's cool. Just a prototype though, not for sale. And I knew the album was going to be about attention, advertisements, and sources of distraction, I guess. Not just advertisements in like the advertisement sense, but advertisements in the sense of any source, any kind of person or kind of group of people that pushes for you to try to, give them money, pay more attention to them, give your time and effort to them for some reason or another. So that, mostly related to like the internet and social media and all that stuff as it comes up. I'll expand on all that stuff over the weeks. In the different weeks, I think one week is just like social media and that aspect of the album and the topic of attention. So I wrote all of this. There's a fourth verse too that's almost done except for the last line. I wrote all of it in like one night that I couldn't sleep. I just played the beat over and over again and kind of wrote the whole thing except for the last line I was never sure of. I'm still not sure of it. So I don't have the fourth verse in here, just the first three, and then whatever, save it for the actual album. save a little bit for a surprise. This song's probably going to be the first song on the album. Yeah. Maybe I'll talk more about it later. I don't want to say too much about it. I want to get this over with so I can enjoy the rest of the day. If you can hear the birds and stuff. But I'm going to play two versions from the same recording. The first version is going to be like a more raw version. The only thing that's really done to it is mastering. So in the software I use the Reaper software for audio stuff. All I do is master it, which is combining like my voice with the electric guitar and making them sound as like good as it can, given both of those things at the same time in like the final recording. And there's a AI system that does that called Ozone. Basically click a button, it listens to the audio and comes up with its own little chain of effects, equalizing it and increasing the volume in different areas, decreasing it in other areas, and overall making it sound as loud as it can and sound good. And it does other things as well that I haven't quite learned yet. Mostly this week I'm just kind of trusting the software and listening to it a lot. So actually I recorded 4 versions. I'm only going to play 2 of them today. I'm not going to make anyone suffer through 4 versions, but I have the actual raw recording, which is just me singing into this microphone while playing electric guitar, and those get sent as 2 different signals to the computer, and then just played with the volume up a little bit so it sounds so I can like hear it. And then the version I'm about to play is that mastered version of that just takes that and adjusts things to make it sound like the raw version, but yeah, better, I guess. So that's what we're about to hear. And then I was also listening to a mixed version, which I'll talk about at the end of the PowerPoint. Mixing is taking all the individual audio tracks and doing different individual things to them before you master them and combine them. So I had a version that was just the mixes of the voice and the guitar, and then I copied the voice and guitar and I made like backup singers and like a backup guitar basically, or like secondary singers and secondary guitar. And then I had that version, and then the version I'm going to play at the end is that plus the mastery as well. So I walked around town a couple days and just listened to those 4 versions on repeat. I don't know, like a dozen times or so, 12 to 15 times or so. I didn't really count, just however long it took to walk around town, and just kind of listen to what it was changing and stuff, and tried to get some sense of how it was changing the guitar, how it was changing my voice, how it was changing like the loudness, how it was changing like how dynamic the stuff sounded and whatnot. But right now, just so you're not paying attention to the lyrics at the end, I'll show this, like the lyric version, while the first time it plays. And then I'll play it without the lyrics at the end, with all of the effects and everything. Anyway, here's the song Attention, on brand. I have it set pretty loud, so it might be loud to you. And it is intended to be listened to with headphones. It's not binaural this time, but the second version at least, it's going to be stereo, and you'll need to compare it to this version.
Like you hold my attention. The way you move me is intoxifying. When I'm with you I see another dimension. You're my favorite advertisement. On brand. I can't control you, but I know where the switch is. Do me a favor and delete that memory. I thought the point of this was all for attention, but you took every other part of me. On brand. I'm feeling separated from what's inside my head. I'd rather dive into the glass instead and watch you lately. I feel it's underrated to let your demons win when they look so much better in your skin. I can't contain it. On brand. On brand. On brand. On brand.
Oh. And, it didn't really change much about the way my voice sounded or anything, to be honest. Or the way the guitar sounded, it just balanced them a little bit differently. It made different parts of it stand out a bit more, a bit less, and overall adjusted volume. Here's the actual raw version that has no mastering. I'll play a little bit of it. It'll be a lot quieter. Just the first verse or so, for comparison.
I wanna hold you like you hold my attention. The way you move me is intoxifying. When I'm with you I see another dimension. You're my favorite advertisement.
Yeah, and it sounds a lot more like I'm recording in like a box or something in that completely raw version. It's quieter, but still like more natural because it's unaltered sounds. Definitely could adjust the volumes of things and make it sound okay still, but I like what the mastering does to it. It just makes everything pop more, and doesn't really adjust the volume overall too much. It just adjusts like different frequencies to make them pop out more, depending on what's stands out more to human ears. Our brains naturally pay attention a bit more to different frequencies than others. I've studied it a bit more in what would it be, psychoacoustics and psycholinguistics. It probably came up, and a lot of people online say it's important to like understand But the AI does a fairly good job of understanding it on its own and kind of using it as a starting point to make things pop out. And we'll hear what mixing does later on. Maybe I'll just play all four anyway, just a little bit at least. But first, I need to go get some water, I think. Yeah, I need to get water. Maybe a snack. I'll play this video for you about attention. Do pay attention to it. It's a little psychological task. You've seen it if you've been in a Psych 101 class or something. It's fairly old, 99. But a good way to start talking about and thinking about attention. So I'm going to play it here. Enjoy and follow along. Pay attention.
This is a test of selective attention. Count how many times the players wearing white pass the basketball. How many passes did you count? The correct answer is 15 passes. But did you see the gorilla? This video is from research by Daniel Simons and Christopher Chabris and is copyrighted. It is available for use in talks, training, and teaching on DVDs from VisCog Productions.
And it's on YouTube as well. And yes, oh, it was kind of loud. Sorry if it was too loud for you. Yes, that monkey was there the first time as well. There he is. There's a lot of things you can take away from it. It's a selective attention test, meaning that our attention can be selective for what it actively sees and actively actually looks at, and it also kind of shows that we miss a lot of what's going on when we're focused on something else. And it shows how focused you can get when you have a goal in mind, some task in mind that you're trying to accomplish. Like in class, I would stress beforehand, like I'm gonna stop the video and ask you how many passes, and you're gonna raise your hand, and somebody's gonna call out. So just make sure people are actually paying attention. And regardless of like how big the class is or whatever, like around 50% say they saw it and 50% say they didn't see it. Around half and half. That means half the class wasn't paying attention at all to counting basketballs, or they were just automatically counting basketballs and kind of relying on their expertise to count while they looked around for other things. Or maybe their brain is just especially susceptible to weird things coming into their vision or something. Could be a lot of different reasons. But attention, above all, it just demonstrates that attention is a weird, interesting thing. The monkey stood there and beat his chest, and people don't see him at all. It's crazy how selective our attention can be, depending on what we're doing. And I, at some point during the week or throughout the week, I made a little list of, off the top of my head, of just various types of ways of looking at attention. new theory sort of started, and like the naming of new theory and stuff before the channel and everything, the idea of it sort of started from this first one, that we can think of attention in terms of like top down or bottom up, or from like the big or the small, and then the like finite. We can look at like little bits and pieces of something and then count the trees, or get caught up in the trees, or we can take a step back and look at the big picture and see the forest for it. And that was, like I said, the start of like the idea of new theory, of how to sort of apply psychology and attention theories and different theories to learning things. And that was the big general approach. I'm not going to tell the elephant story. I don't want to spend too long on this, but basically, top-down learning means learning from experts, learning from masters of something. Like when you're starting something, I'm trying to mastering and mixing. So I've mostly been watching YouTube videos from like made and sponsored by the website of the add-in I bought for helping with this stuff. There's tons of videos online of people who know this stuff really well and talk about it and enjoy teaching people about it. And those are the masters. Or ideally, I know some people who actually do it in person I can learn a bit from, who may not be like masters, but they have mastered certain aspects of it that I can ask them about and learn from, and they can listen to it and give me advice and whatnot. Like intermediates can help beginners, and even beginners can help experts learn bits and pieces of things they may not have thought of. But mostly, in the beginning especially, spending a lot of time with masters or learning from masters of things. And the small or bottom up is actually sitting and practicing and learning, skills and teaching your body and teaching your mind the techniques by doing stuff over and over again. And so many people just do that second one. They just do the type of practicing where you're directly trying to learn something. They spend 3 hours a day just repeatedly doing like a hand exercise over and over again. And that's never going to translate to them actually, I don't know, playing guitar on a stage or something, unless they start looking and spending time and like practicing doing that and observing people doing that. Two things, it requires a lot of different types of skills. And you want from the beginning to have like a really solid goal of the type of like person you want to be in the end, or like what you want it to look like at the end. But I'm not going to talk about the rest of these too much. There's different kinds of ways of like viewing attention from different disciplines in psychology. They have their own different words and theories and diagrams and acronyms and crap, and people's names attached to them. And every little individual discipline in psychology looks at it in different ways. Like social psychology looks at it from a social perspective, and human factors psychology that I study looks at it from a like paying attention to like devices and machines and whatnot perspective. Like where your energy goes to more behaviorally. And they have their own little, separate theories to describe them with their own different words, own different sets of researchers. And the same is true for all of the disciplines in psychology, pretty much. And then outside of psychology, there's sociology, and they look at attention from different angles, and people's ability to get attention, and like demagogues that like manipulate people's attention. And every different discipline out there that looks at life in some way has their own little theories of attention. I've tried to look at and think about and see the perspective of as many of them as possible. But you can look at attention as being internal or external, like thinking about stuff outside of you, like the world, or inside of you. You can separate that into the body, the brain, and the mind, even where you're putting your attention into your physical self, your brain, or your thoughts, or the unconscious or conscious types of attention. Like we can only be, if we're consciously paying attention to something, we can only really be doing that with one thing at a time. Like when we're driving, most of the time you're not actually paying attention to the road. You're paying attention to the music, you're paying attention to the person you're talking to, or the speedometer, or a sign, or something along the side of the road. You're paying attention to different things and thinking about things, and you're only kind of unconsciously paying attention to the road at all, and your mind's just looking for random stuff to pop up that might be dangerous or something, and then you pay attention. Well, that's for the most part. And then we spend some time, like every once in a while, thinking about the road just to make sure where we're going and everything. That's studied a lot, like driving research and whatnot. There's also, these aren't the words they use, but that's basically it. There's passive and active attention, sort of is related to what I just talked about. And we can actively direct it and decide where it goes. It's a little bit different than conscious, because you can be conscious of something you don't want to be thinking about, I guess. In terms of like emotion research that I did for a while, you can think of attention as like going to your senses that are trying to understand the world, or going to your affect, or your like emotional parts of your brain that tells you how like hungry and thirsty and sleepy and stuff you are, or it can be going to some combination of those, which is what we call emotions, and various other sort of things that happen in our front part of our brains. So you can pay attention to any of those things. Like you can really think about how hungry you are right now, if you want to, or you can really think about some food that you have that you can see. Like I can see a granola bar over there. I can think about it, or I can think about some combination of how eating the granola bar would make me less hungry, and that would be more of an emotion thing. Also, more about that during that week. Let's see. You can think about it. This is how like optimism and hope and other kind of positive psychology looks at it, and some other disciplines. You can think about it more temporally, in terms of time, how much time we spend thinking about stuff that happened in the past, or who we used to be, or some conversation we had, or whatever it may be, some trauma, versus how much time we spend in the future trying to plan things and worrying usually about what's going to happen, and trying to find something to do or care about or think about. And then there's how much time do we spend in the present, being mindful, acting without really being aware of anything around us, either in like a meditative way or a mindful like flow sort of way. Which we want to be ideally, but in like a positive way without drugs and whatnot. Let's see, if you think of it as a resource, which some of these do, it can be something that can be given, or stolen, like it's something that like it's precious to you, like you have a certain amount of attention that you have every day, 16 hours that you're giving to random things. Like how much do you give to things that you enjoy, and how much is stolen from you by advertisements, or by the insert religious group here knocking on your door and trying to hand you pamphlets and whatever random. How much time do you spend looking at billboards and advertisements and 30-minute unskippable ads before YouTube, etc., etc.? How much attention is stolen from you if you think of it as a resource? So I spent at least a song or two thinking about it in like that way, and seeing what was out there in terms of like research and stuff. Let's see. You can think about it as how much goes to like the real world versus the technological world. Again, sort of in my profession, and just like social psychology, how much time people spend with social media and in parasocial relationships, etc., 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 and with AI and stuff nowadays, versus, or just online in general, or in video gaming, or in any kind of media. Even a book would count, I would say, where you're kind of escaping from the world versus living in the world. How much of your attention goes to that, or thinks about that? I guess it could be artificial, not technological. Like artificial better. Yeah. But now there's a 2 here. Don't much care for that, but I'll figure it out later. Not that I'm going to do anything with this list. This is just a random list of things I wrote down. Attention can be high or low intensity or energy, if you think about it as like an amount that you can give at different times, which is sort of true. Because our levels of like stress or physiological arousal are the thing that change the most during the day. Like our heart rate and breathing and sweat and stuff fluctuate the most during the day, based on how like intense something is, or how much energy you need to put into it. And if you're putting more energy into like your body and your mind, you're kind of like paying more attention to things, and time is literally moving slower. Like hummingbirds experience time very, very slowly, and tortoises experience time very, very kind of quickly, if you think about it. And I have researched it and asked ChatGPT as well. Hummingbirds, very fast metabolisms, fast thinking, and fast moving, and they have to think faster, so a second for them lasts longer. But they're expending more energy, and they don't live quite as long as tortoises. Tortoises are slower, they're experiencing life in sort of a faster way, forming less memories, doing less things, overall living longer. And humans are in between there, and kind of depending on lifestyle can have different amounts of attention in either direction. It can be sort of similar to some of these. It can be either like directed or diffuse. Like you can kind of like, while watching TV or doing any sort of activity, unfocus your eyes and kind of take it all in at once. Or you can very hyper-specifically focus on one little element of something. Another thing I've learned in master's program and stuff, in the master's program, yes, and done research on, is peripheral macular focal attention. Those are more technical terms, but our periphery is just everything outside of what we're looking at the moment, and all of it is black and white. are basically just very, very staticky, and the farther you get out, the more staticky it is. If you're just staring at a given point and everything is black and white, our mind kind of fills it in with color, and our eyes kind of dart around to fill it in with color and space and stuff, but from a single point, it's all just black and white and very blurry, and we're only kind of looking for big things that pop out in our vision. And we're not putting a whole lot of energy into thinking about our peripheral vision. But then our macula is like a certain part of our retina. If you stick your fist out like this, it's around that size of what you're looking at. There's a decent amount of color and clarity in that space. And then your fovea is like your thumbnail. If you stick your hand out arm's length. And that's where the finest amount of attention goes to, and the finest amount of, or the greatest amount of like cells, color cells, cones in the eye go to. Very clear, very, very detailed image of what we're looking at a given moment. I'll talk about that one a bit because, yeah, why not? I know a lot about it, and eyes come up in nuke theory a lot, like the whole eye symbol and everything. It's interesting stuff. Yes, you can think about sense in terms of perspective as well. Or you think about attention in terms of perspective as well. Are you thinking about yourself? Which is what people end up thinking about when they are unhappy in life or unfulfilled in life. You can see this with optimism research that looks at like big data, like people's Twitter posts and stuff, that people who are focused on eating and sex and short-term sort of like survival and happiness, the least happiness, the least happiest, and they are focusing on themselves. And then the second person would be focusing on a single other person or a single group of people or something. Third person would be viewing things from some outside perspective. Fourth person, I've learned about recently, like kindergartners and stuff nowadays are talking to imaginary chat rooms and stuff. I think it comes mostly from streaming culture, like Twitch streaming, like video game streaming and stuff. There's always a chat room that people are talking to, and streamers always refer to that chat room as chat. I don't engage in it myself, but I do watch Twitch streamers, and they sometimes talk to their chat, literally. But there's actual like kids talking to fake chat rooms. I'm not sure if they're like streamers in their spare time or something. I mean, power to them, I guess. But apparently that's a fourth person thing. You can Google it if you want. Like talking to a fictitious audience, which usually doesn't happen until we become teenagers, and the mind kind of can't help but focus on that kind of thing. Give me a second here. Oh, I've been talking way too long. I'm gonna skim through the rest of these. Didn't really prepare anything in particular, just kind of put together what I had on attention from like 3 or 4 classes into one sort of slide over the week. What do we have here? Oh, yes. I've been reading like a sciencey book written by some scientist explaining a bunch of his research and whatnot on how learning happens and memory happens, and how attention happens, like within the brain, the neurobiology of all of it. And reading articles and stuff on it, that was kind of the goal of this week's research and education aspect of the week, other than music. And the big thing I'm interested in is how the attention parts of the brain work. And I kind of stumbled across some research while I was looking into something else, that these three big parts of attention that I always talk about in class and stuff, the more connected they are to each other, the more creative people are. Like, there was a study that looked at these three different types of attention and did brain scans, functional connectivity scans that looked at how things are connected in the brain. And the more connected these three attention networks are, the more connected these three attention networks are, the more creative people could be while they were writing and like coming up with creative uses for tools and stuff. And I always talk about these three types of attention in classes, usually during the first week, because attention is such an important topic. It's kind of the gateway to learning and memory, like what we're paying attention to at any time. And it's the gateway to depression and anxiety and stuff. Those involve like paying attention to certain things and getting sort of trapped in them. I find it to be like the center point of all other like psychology and stuff. At least at the moment. That might change in the future. I don't know. I see it as being extremely important, so I teach it first day of class, or like second day after I talk about syllabus and stuff. But these three types of attention make their way into the album quite a bit, which is why I'm spending a whole lot of time talking to them, or talking about them in this journal or whatever. And they are the default mode network, the salience network, and the central executive or executive control network. The default mode network is the resting state our brain goes into when we're not doing anything else. Basically, like the noise, or daydreaming. What we experience when we meditate would be like a positive version of this, or when we get like wrapped up just thinking about negative thing after negative thing and not really focusing on any one, or something like that. Different versions of it. When you start to go to sleep and your mind wanders to various things and doesn't really settle on any one thing in particular. And when we're in this state quite a lot during the day, we're not actually doing anything with our minds. Like when you're driving and just like daydreaming or letting your mind wander to this or that, or sort of like if you're scrolling a device or something and your mind's just wandering, or reading a book but your eyes are going over the words and you're not registering anything, you're just whatever, thinking about whatever. We're in this state quite a lot, and more often than not we're thinking about something very unproductive or negative. Usually negative, some anxiety or some a negative thing from the past, or some worry about something in the future, or something we should be doing right now, or thinking about our hunger or our thirst, or in whatever sense of the word, or whatever it may be. How can I get just trapped thinking about something negative? It has been studied with fMRI research. They have control group with whatever they're studying. If they're studying like music or something, one person listens to music, one group listens to music with it inside the machine, and then another group is told to just sit there and think about nothing or whatever while they sit inside the machine. So they're sort of in the default mode, and all the control groups are usually asked, like, what were you thinking about while you were sitting there thinking about nothing, and it's typically something negative. When we go into this state, it's our default to be negative in our default state, to like search for something to do, to search for something to care about, and then sort of the way to make that positive is to find like goals in life, and do things in life to fill your mind with more positive examples and a positive sort of direction. Optimism in general. Yeah. And I'd say that's the big primary even theme of the album, is taking the a noise of just thought and all the nonsense that's going on all the time, and finding goals and positivity and meaning and hope and stuff within that chaos. And then salience network, something that's just always going, always active. It's our passive attention. It basically is just waiting for something to jump out. It could be a thought that kind of sticks with us, or it could be bright light, or a police siren, or an air conditioner kicking on, or your phone tingling in your pocket or something. Any of those things draw your attention, and our brain is always looking for it. And that's why you get like phantom tingles where your phone usually is in your pocket, if you keep it in your pocket, and you think your phone went off because your brain's looking for it in that specific area. But yes, we're always looking for something all the time. This is always going. It's not like we're in one of these or the other. This is always active. And unless we're actively thinking about something, the default mode is sort of going. Something salient, by the way, is just something that kind of stands out. That's a word for it. Something high contrast, basically. And then the third type of attention, there's a lot more like networks that I could talk about, but these are the three main ones, and the three that I look into the most. The central executive network is our active attention. Some psychologists and some teachers describe it as like the little man in your head that controls what you do and kind of controls everything. I don't usually describe it that way. I don't like thinking about it that way. I think all of these are different parts of us, and we gotta accept them all as sort of one. Central executive is our active attention. If like the salience captures your mind and something pops out for you to think about or something, this system, the central executive system, holds your mind onto it for some reason, because you think it's important, because you can get information from it, it just has really strong emotions and it's hard to not think about or something. It could be a lot of reasons. Stuff kind of sticks on your head obsessively, possibly. Or if you have trouble keeping things on your head, that's a problem in its own way. A more ADHD type of attention issue. And central executive functioning, we kind of have default And salience networks from the time we're born, but central executive develops slowly, a lot more slowly than any other part of the body or brain. It's the last thing to finish developing sometime in the mid-20s. But again, sort of relating stuff to the album again. The default network relates more to the noisy sort of aspect of the art. And salience relates, especially in this album, it relates a lot to things popping out and standing out in terms of drawing attention. Advertisements are brought up a lot, but also other things that kind of demand or draw attention, especially demagogues or endearing political figures and authority figures that use manipulative language to get people to listen to them and follow them and stuff. Some of the songs are written from that perspective. All trying to use get people's attention and then keep people's attention. So central executive is the ability to control and use and guide that, where you're putting your attention, which, like I said, it's not that we should always be active in our attention. It's not that we should always be daydreaming or something, or any one of these are better than the other or something. Like I said, with creativity, it's how well connected these three networks in the brain are to each other. So it's how much sort of control and recognition we have over our daydreams, and picking the right things that kind of stand out to focus on, stuff that's not too obvious, that could be creative and interesting. The article specifically mentions that. And then the ability to actively focus on something that we do find interesting, whether it be in the world or some thought, and really focus on it with the central executive active attention, while keeping the other aspects quiet. So if you want to ask me the overall theme of the album, it's this slide, I guess, and how these things relate to each other, how they relate to creativity, to mindfulness, to optimism, and setting a goal, or an X in life, actively guiding yourself towards positive experiences, or trees that make up a forest of who you are, or who you want to become. That's the general gist of it off the top of my head. I haven't really practiced or rehearsed or thought about that, but yeah. Yeah, and there are specific regions of the brain in everyone that are activated with these different systems. Central executive network. What is that? The dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. Those areas are continuing to develop. And yes, I've talked about this. And, back to I mentioned when we're babies and stuff before, because I teach child development and lifespan development and stuff, and it's a lot of where I do my research and build my theories from. But so it's probably where this slide came from. Most of these slides. When we are babies, first year of life, we're infants. And then in this time, in this first year of life, is when we are learning the most about the world, making the most sort of connections in our brains, building a foundation for who we're going to be for the rest of our lives. Basically, like, we're born, we have a mostly like blank brain that's just a ton of neurons, but not a whole lot of connections between them yet. Those connections come from experiencing things in the world. And for the first year of life, infants are playing with red balls and food and stuff, and whatever they can get their hands on, shiny keys and whatnot, being distracted by whatever they can be distracted by. But the thing that infants pay the most attention to and are drawn the most to, even though they can't actively control their attention yet, is interacting with other people. Like I said, it's the most important way to learn, in the beginning at least, top-down learning of just looking at people talking to you, looking at people like making expressions and showing you things and feeding you and stuff, and learning about the world through other people. And that's the biggest part of how infants learn. And like I argued before, it's the biggest part of anyone getting into any sort of new career, a skill, or language or anything like that should learn. Kind of just blankly watching masters and doing your best to learn from them. More on that in a minute, though. But around 18 months, at the end of toddlerhood, we gain access, on average, to that active control of our attention, the central executive network. Because the brain is just kind of developed that much. Before then, we can't really form memories, and we can't really actively pay attention to things. At this time, like coinciding with that, kids, at this point they become kids, basically. They enter early childhood at 18 months. They can see themselves in mirrors. They recognize that they exist. This is tested with rouge or lipstick on the forehead. If they point to it and try to wipe it off and stuff, then you know that they recognize that the child in the mirror is them. But before this, at 17 months, 16 months, 15 months, kids will look behind the mirror for the other kid. They'll wave at the kid, and they won't make the connection. But at 18 months, with active attention and focus, they can learn more about themselves, and they're also learning more about their bodies and the worlds, because they can focus on them and think about them, start making memories at some point after this time, with things that stand out. So I'll get into self and stuff later. I don't want to talk too much about this nonsense right now, today. Yeah, it's a whole topic for a later time. This time specifically was a big inspiration for a lot of my earlier stuff, like AI Afterlife and whatnot. It's about more the self and stuff. Again, I'll get into that in a few videos from now, I guess. I want to talk more about the self and put my PowerPoint together for that. And then, yeah, I just included this one. It basically has the same information, but there's a cow that spins, which is fun. I always liked this little meme. You could call it a meme or some kind of Twitter post or something. If you're bored, you can simply close your eyes and rotate a cow in your mind. It's free, and the cops can't stop you. I like it. I like the cops part. It makes it funnier. But yeah, this happens as well at 18 months. The ability to like hypothetically think about things, like focus on things within the mind and make them happen, and think about something that doesn't exist like this. Yes, yes. There's another kind of there's plenty of different kinds of attention, like I've kind of talked about. One I didn't talk about was more like social attention. It's called joint attention. Joint attention is being able to like pay attention with another person towards some common goal. And infants can't do this, really. They're kind of learning to do it up until year 1, and then they can start doing it at about 12 months. And this type of attention is super important, and it's used in shows like Dora the Explorer and Blue's Clues and Sesame Street and stuff. I wish I could play this video, but I don't feel like opening up Google Chrome right now. Where the characters make eye contact with the camera a lot to like guide small children's attention. It's how little kids learn about things. They see older people, either adults or like older sisters or brothers or stuff, or like cousins or whatever. They see older people talking. They see older people using scissors and using pens and playing with toys and stuff, and eating things or not eating things and reacting to things. So a big part of how we learn about the world is by watching other people interact with the world. That's why I say like one of the biggest social epidemics now is mothers having access to smartphones, because they can like breastfeed with one arm while swiping on their phone easily with their right hand, and they're not spending time with their kid, or their kid is, watching Bluey on YouTube on an endless loop, or some other like low quality YouTube or random shows that they found, while the parent does their own media thing and doesn't really engage with the child. Media makes it very easy, very, very, very easy to escape from the world and escape from the responsibilities of parenthood, of life, etc., etc. There's already enough distractions in the world. We don't need distractions from things that can give us, joy and whatnot. Now, this concept pops up from time to time in songs as well, and I focus a lot in classes and whatnot. Just it relates a lot to not only like development, but also like human factors and technology and social stuff and whatnot as well. It's very ubiquitous aspect of attention. I couldn't find a better word in my head. A very a multi-use sort of way of looking at attention that applies to a lot of different disciplines. So I like it. And yeah, growing up to 1 year old, the first 3 months, infants, babies, pretty much only looking at like the mouths of the people who are talking to them. Their eyes are focusing and they can't really see super well, only things that are really close to them. And they're trying to like tune in with their ears as well, like the words and how they're being spoken, and coordinate their eyes and their ears and all their other senses together. So they're looking at the mouths mostly. And then around 3 months, they start looking at the eyes. I use quotes here because they're not really looking at eyes. They're looking at eyes and then like the mouth and then like one eye or the other eye, and then like the forehead and stuff. What they're really looking at is they're getting a big picture of how people like talk and express, communicate like emotions and stuff. Yeah, and then kids spend about 9 months, 5 to 9 months, doing mostly that, just learning emotional states and learning like facial expressions and like body movements and stuff to an extent by just like copying and learning from adults and peers and siblings and stuff. Well, probably not peers, but siblings. And yeah, sometime from 8 months to 12 months, their eyes start to shift from the face to the hands more. So it becomes like, I've kind of like, at first they figure out their own senses and the language, and then they figure out like how to communicate the language, and then they figure out how to communicate with another person towards like some common goal or some common understanding. Any sort of eye contact synchronizes, like literally like syncs the brains up between the child and, you know, the mother or the sister or brother or father, whoever it happens to be. It syncs their brains together, like literally. So the kid is very directly learning by both top-down and bottom-up means of seeing how the adult, the expert, interacts with it while interacting with it himself or herself, doing sort of both at the same time. Babies and toddlers are the masters at learning at their various stages. A baby for the first year just mostly takes in the information, learns the language, and learns how to express it, and learns the basic foundation of it. And it's not really until a year that they actively learn how to like talk to and engage with another person about it. And then 12 to 18 months, and for the rest of our lives, I'd say we learn the most efficiently through a combination of that, like experts and hands-on sort of learning. Yep. I'm sure I'll talk about that more going forward. Yes. And all of this, maybe not so much every little small aspect of this, for sure, but joint attention in general, and its importance and whatnot, comes up in a few songs. I'll talk about it later on. But yeah, that's all the random educational nonsense. Where are we at? About an hour and 8 minutes. Some more specific stuff from this week. I talk about some stuff I did. The big thing I did that I'll be talking about is just diving into mixing and mastering, like I just sort of described. Watching YouTube videos, and like for one of the videos I was following along in the software itself, step by step, and like pausing the video, taking notes, doing stuff in the software. And then for the second video, I just sat back and watched it, and occasionally I would take some notes or screenshots or something. And just sort of, learning in its most efficient form early on when you're diving into something. And I definitely learned a ton of the foundational stuff of mixing and mastering, on top of whatever random crap I picked up over the years using Audacity and other audio stuff and kind of looking into it. I learned tons of words and phrases. That's so important early on. Like in software, I was learning key shortcuts like Control M and stuff, and I was learning where to find certain things. And from the video and from the expert, I was learning names for things that and how they're specifically used within like this realm. Like the term automation is used very specifically with audio stuff to mean like changing the volume at like different amounts over the song depending on some equation or something. I still haven't learned too much about it or how to do it, but that's completely different than how I use the word automation in its different senses. And like the word panning, that's talking about how like left or right the audio is. A DAW is like digital audio workspace. That's the actual like software I use, but everyone calls it DAW. A VST is something I don't understand or can't explain right now, but it's basically like a plug-in that you use, and just like plug in that word in general is how you like add effects and do things to the sound. See, polarity and phase are words that I know from audio stuff, but I learned them in relation to their new meaning in terms of mixing and mastering, and what phase like sounds like when it comes to a bunch of different instruments together. Phase is like the time. Like timing of the audio. If you put like two microphones, like one here and one here, my voice is going to hit them at different times, so they have different phases. That's the best way of explaining it I can think of on spot. And polarity is like the direction of, or the negativity or positivity of the audio wave itself. Things I knew, but seeing them in terms of this are kind of helped me understand the language of mixing and mastering better. And then like the thick and wide. Obviously, I know what the term thick means. I'm down with the thickness. I know what wide means, but in audio, I learned that it's like how much when you have headphones on sounds like it is around you, which is something I've actually like taught and looked into before. Sound localization. You can put headphones on, and depending on like the loudness of the different ears and the timing of the different ears, it sounds like they're in different places. Yes, but a sound can be like narrow or thin, or thick or wide, and that and different sounds can be different like widths and different positions to get different sort of effects and stuff. So I learned a lot about that in relation to like the words. I've been hearing it a lot more in the songs I play. Like when I was listening to these 4 versions of the same song, I was listening to like how the width changed a little bit. And that first version I played, I think the mastering software does a little bit of widening, so it's not all just right in front of you. It like is sort of generally sort of in front of you, but it's like a little more wide than directly in front of you. Yeah, I think it does something like that. But the version I'm about to play, I have like additional voices set like right here at like 45, 60 degree angles, and I have some like bass noises at 90 degree angles, and there's, I think it adds like a ton of depth or width and depth and various things. I didn't think about these when it came to music and stuff until I spent time learning from an expert online and actually learning the terms for it and listening for it. And then other like audio stuff, low pass filtering and low end frequencies and stuff that I kind of know from working with audio in the past, but again, hearing them in this context helps me frame it all and understand what to look for in the language and what's most important. Definitely the things they emphasize are the more important things that need to be learned. Yeah, the big topics they focus on, like the headers for the different parts of the YouTube videos and the big different aspects of it they highlight at like the beginnings of the videos and stuff, and when they stop and really address certain parts more or less. Just like when I teach a class, I emphasize things that are more important and spend more time on things that are more important and highlight and bold things and whatnot and yada yada yada. Tell a joke about something if I want them to really remember it. Play a video about it. And the good YouTube videos and stuff do that. Good tutorials online. And very importantly this week as well is learning the overall, like, how to do things. Not just specifically what to do, but like the order of things to do stuff in. The syntax. Or as I put it in the mixing mastering world, the chain of things that you do, of getting, like making sure all of your sound setup is good and recording is good and setting up your microphones in a certain way, and the recording, and then there's like a whole a massive number of steps that you can go through to go from that point to it being like something on Spotify. And people take different steps, but overall there is a sequence to everything of in the digital audio workspace, in the DAW, like setting up everything and like creating templates and coloring everything and naming everything in a certain way that's going to be helpful for future steps. I kind of learned how to do that. And the namings and phrases for all the different aspects of that. And then like grouping instruments together and working on different instruments in a different like order, one at a time, and creating a version that's completely like unfiltered first so that you can compare it to, and using a reference and picking that before you start things, and just the expert sequence of going from beginning something to the end of something, kind of filling all that in. So I have a good idea of overall the big important concepts and words and how to use them, and overall like the sequence of how everything goes. Hopefully over the next 11 or so weeks I can fill in a bit more with more specific information and make it sound better. I think I made good progress this week though in terms of this. And one other big thing that I was really drawn to in like an hour-long video that I watched and just took a bunch of notes on. He was an expert mixer going through the whole process of mixing and that sequence. And the very first thing he did was just listen to the like unmixed audio that the band gave him, like a different band or a band gave him a bunch of audio files that they had like put together, and it was his job to mix them together. He just listened to it and he tried to tell what the overall emotional tone was. And the name of that song was Kombucha. I don't remember the name of the band or the video or whatever. I'll put a link to the video that talks about it in the YouTube description, I guess, or something. I feel obligated to do it now, and now that I said it especially. But he listened to it and he said the overall like vibe of it was, it is fun, quirky, body-moving, rockin', psychedelic roller coaster ride. Like I've talked about many times in the past in relation to my theories and ideas and how I make songs and stuff, I start with adjectives, like 5 to 7 adjectives, and get a sense for the overall idea of how I want something to sound, or like how I want the song to be in terms of songwriting, like the feeling of it and stuff. So I've always used adjectives and like studied and researched adjectives, and they're part of my like upcoming research I'm doing, as well as a big part of other stuff I've heavily researched in the past. Like the development of how we learn adjectives, like 3 years and even like 18 months onward, most likely. But I know at least as young as 3 years. A little kid, you can show them a black cat, and then a black recording device, and a black phone, and that's all it takes for the child to learn what the word black means. And then they start doing that with people as well. And that's kind of when stereotypes and stuff begin to take hold, and then they start doing that with the words like male and female as well, and that's when gender roles start to take hold. And they start doing that with words like happy and sad, and that's when emotions start to take hold. All these different adjectives, if you didn't notice, all of those are adjectives: male, female, black, white, Hispanic, etc. That was my third example. Yeah. Adjectives. We use them to describe, understand the world, and we learn them very, very early on. And they link all of these different disciplines and stuff together. Like, I know what all these words mean. Fun, quirky, body-moving, rocking, psychedelic roller coaster ride. I know what every single one of those words mean. And it was a master mixer that said them, because he knows how to say the right words so that like someone who doesn't know mixing can understand it. That was the point of the video, like how you start mixing. And that's what a good teacher does as well. They know how to use the right words to get it across in an 18-year-old's sense. And that's how a good, like a software and apps are designed, and AI is designed, that they can talk in a way that is that anyone can understand. Now, regardless of their discipline, regardless of their specific languages and stuff. So that's an excellent start. Not just for mixing something, but it's an excellent start for creativity in general. The like emotional aspect and language aspect of anything. If I were going to describe my scientific research goals and interests so far in life, that would be the elevator pitch for them. Unpracticed, but good that I recorded it, so I can reference it later and make it better sounding. So yeah. So I really like that he used this, and he started with this, and then the overall goal was, it's somebody else's song, but this feels like how it's supposed to sound, how they want it to sound, and I agreed with it. Like, he had us do a practice of listening to it once and just writing how we feel. I didn't do it, but I got a general sense, and I agree mostly with what he put. And then he went through every little subsection of the song, like the intro and the different verses, and talked about how it does feel and how it should feel. Going so far as to relate those words, like the verse should be quirky, so in order to make it quirky, here's how you change it in the mixing process. You want it to be drier, more staccato, which means like t instead of tsh. direct. You want it to be more narrow and mono with the drum beat. He's talking specifically about the drums there, I suppose. And you want to get it to sound gritty and scrawny in the verse. You distort the bass to get it to sound like an "I just woke up" feeling. You muffle it and saturate the lead vocals to make it sound psychedelic. Put a wide, the female backup vocals, make them wider with a flanger, which kind of pulsates, I think, or does. I'm not sure to the sound. So he's taking these words that anyone can understand, like quirky, and these adjectives, and then you can understand what that adjective means because you've heard it before, or you can at least make sense of it, and then you can link it to an additional thing of how it sounds in the mixing when it comes to specific little elements. Adjectives are wonderful middle ground, and emotions and whatnot are wonderful middle grounds for thinking about something in terms of top and bottom up, top down and bottom up. Anyways, so I really enjoyed that, and I am the artist, and I decide the adjectives for mine. I don't have to give it to somebody to mix it for me who has to come up with their own adjectives. So I can start from the scratch with adjectives for how I want the sound of the album to be. And not just the sound of the album, the look of the album, and the look of the album merchandising, even though this isn't for sale, it's just a prototype. Branding and the music video and stuff should all follow the same overall feeling. You can call it feeling, I guess. Feeling just means an overall psychological state at any given moment, as I've learned to understand it, at least. And emotions and stuff, or just whatever you can put words into, because that's universal. So the adjectives I came up with 7 adjectives for the overall album in all its aspects. Punky, I just want it to sound it's inspired by punk rock and punk hip hop stuff that I watched at 2000 Trees, and I like that style and sound. My favorite album ever is Chuck by Sum 41. It's a very punk album, and the album I'm probably going to use as reference when it comes to the overall sound in terms of most of this stuff is that one. So I want to sound punky. You should listen to it and think, yeah, this is a punk song. This is a punk album. And I went with that for the spray paint sort of graphic, which doesn't really look spray painted in the prototype version. I need to work on that a little bit longer than the 2 minutes I spent. And I need to change a bunch of other stuff about it, blah blah blah. But so the punky overall aesthetic and sound. It needs to be intense. Just overall, in terms of the energy levels, I want it to be mostly intense and fast paced and stuff. And it's important as well to have a song or two at least that don't follow everything about this to a T. So there are a few songs that are slower and less intense and on a different sort of spectrum of intensity. So every song is different, but this is the overall sort of album in general. See, I want it to be noisy, staticky and whatnot. Well, when that comes to the mixing and stuff, I want to leave a certain amount of noise and spread out the noise and think about how much is in every song and stuff. But overall, it should be fairly sort of noisy, and it should be when the music comes in, it's drowning out the noise, and whenever the music like slows down or stops, like the noise like builds up, and then so it's like a constant little battle to kind of represent the default sort of mode of attention overall throughout. Let's see, I made up a word here, facetious. It's a play on facetious, which is like being sarcastically fake is how I describe it. That's how it's different from being sarcastic. Being facetious is like pretending to be a certain way. Yes. Like sometimes in class I'll pretend to like not know what the word "gat" means or something, and I'll be like, "What? Does anyone know what this "gat" word means?" or something like that. That would be an example of facetious. I'm pretending. I'm being fake. But it's usually obvious. Fun-cetious, because it should be, a fun sort of sarcasm. It shouldn't be perceived as like a negative kind of facetiousness. Which is especially challenging because most of the lyrics are much darker, even though they have more positive like stories and themes underneath. I just like darker sounding stuff. And punk music's not about happiness and holding hands. Typically, it's about fighting systems and whatnot. Telling your ex to go F themselves and whatever. So on the surface level, that's what pretty much all the songs are about. Something darker and more aggressive and directed and whatnot. It should all be overall perceived as facetious and sarcastic and stuff. Too many Marvel movies through my life taught me to be sarcastic. It should be entrancing. What I mean by that is not some wishy-washy sort of version of the word. Specifically, I want it to get people to like feel a physical movement with the music. Like, it should naturally like make your body move, or make you at least feel like you're moving or something. That sort of entrance. Like you are the snake being charmed by the that. And then deep, just a very much more general, broad term, but also I want a lot of like bass and deepness in relation to like the frequency of the sound being low, as well as like watery. I want to capture the watery aspect of deepness as well, and that is one of the like themes of the album, water. From many of the songs, and it's going to be a theme of like the video and stuff as well, as it was with the first album. Dynamic. Definitely want to aim for dynamic. It's going to be difficult to do, but dynamic, it just means it varies a lot, changes a lot. Like sometimes it's loud, sometimes it's soft, sometimes it's wide, sometimes it's narrow. Sometimes there's a lot of echo, sometimes there's less. I want it to change as much as possible. But I also want there to be an overall uniformness between all of the different songs, like an album-wide thing that captures all of these things together. Like I want the music video to not, I want it to be like the same room. My window's still open and it's like nighttime now, people walking around. But what was I talking about? So yeah, those are the 7 adjectives I'm going to strive for. And in order to sort of test that, at least for this week, I don't know if I'm going to keep doing this. I created a wonderful scientific scale specifically for this album. that I'm only recognizing this scale for any reviews, any ratings of this album or any of its songs need to be judged on this scale, or I will not accept them. I will not agree with them. I don't accept any thumbs up systems or star systems or grading systems or 1 to 10 systems. I only accept ratings along the PinFed scale, PINFEDD. And if I get enough of them, at least 30, I'll publish a scientific article about it related to my album, whatever. Or I won't. I'm not going to make that into an actual promise. I'm just being facetious right now. So yeah, it just goes from very sad face to like to no emotion neutral to mildly happy to yeah, this is good. Or however you want to word them, however you want to word these faces. But the faces are the technical wording for the scale. So that first version of the song I played you at the beginning of the video, I put as number 1. So I don't think it could sound less punky, but I don't think it sounded very punky whatsoever. Like the voice was too loud, the guitar wasn't loud enough, and there wasn't a lot of like reverberations going on or distortion or anything. It was too clear. So I give it an like a nyeh on the punky scale. Intensity, I don't think it was intense at all. I mean, it really showcased how smooth my voice has gotten from all the talking into microphones and teaching into microphones and trying not to breathe audibly and stuff. But it doesn't really do a good job of sounding intense, that's for sure. I've learned that you really want to like envelop your voice with instruments and stuff, and you want to build a visual sort of environment. I'll get into on the next slide. And you don't want to like stand out too much with the vocals. Pop songs sometimes, but not rock or punk or anything. The noisy factor, I gave it a nyeh. A lot of the noise comes from guitar distortion, and it comes from stuff other than just the voice itself. And this microphone is very good at not being very noisy, other than some like very, very light background noise. So not enough noise, definitely not enough noise. I want more static in there and more loud distortions and stuff. Facetious. I guess that mostly comes from the lyrics themselves. But with this song, I like the foundation of this song, like why I decided to write it and how it sort of started is I wanted a song that I could play, like if I walked out onto a stage, what was the first song I could play to get me like in the mood of performing on a stage, because that was really on my mind from the live performances at the festival. So like the first verse of the song, I'm just kind of singing normally just with my mouth, just to relate this to how infants sort of develop and stuff. I start by just using my mouth and singing, and then for the second verse I try to use more of my face. I'm not sure how much I did in this recording. I was more focused on recording, but the second verse I use my face more, and you can really feel the like emotional expression a bit more, and I'm using my mouth a bit more and like wider and stuff. And then for the third verse I get into it more with like my body, so looking at the mirror and actually getting into it more matters, like the upper body. And then for the fourth verse, which I don't have here, and I don't want to sing because the window's open, but I may like say it to you after the next version of the song. For the fourth verse, I try to like move my legs more and like get my knees into it and stuff, and that really affects the voice, and it affects the guitar, and it affects the recording because your distance from the microphone's moving around. Even though I'm not using binaural microphones this time around, I'm still moving around, and the guitar's still moving around, and the way I'm holding it is still changing and stuff. So it's perhaps capturing those emotional aspects. How much of that is fun, facetious? I think it's more in the visual elements of this song. Kind of hard to get a fun, facetious element with this song, because there's no like overly sarcastic elements to it. But I give it an eh. A little funness is added when the rest of the stuff comes into play, but I give that first version a yeah. Entrancing, it could have done worse, but overall, yeah. Deep, definitely not deep. Like I sing a little bit lower on this myself, but I don't know, with the guitar being so low and stuff, I wouldn't describe anything about that first recording as deep. Yeah, I'll get into that in a minute. And then dynamic, a little bit, I guess. Like there's some dynamic range in like my voice and stuff and how I sing, from what I just described with the movement and whatnot. Even though I was sitting down for this recording, I wasn't really, I didn't really have my heart and soul into it. I was just doing it for the recording. And let's see. And for the one I'm about to play you, here's what I ranked it. You can make your own judgments if you will make your own judgments. You can use this scale if you want to or not. But I don't recognize your judgment whatsoever unless you use the scale. You don't have to tell me about it, but I won't acknowledge mentally your collective judgment of my art unless you use the specific scientific scale prescribed for it. But I gave it... overall, it was better in every category. I think it's better in every category. By 1 in some areas and by 2 in most areas. Overall, that first performance, I give it a negative meh. Like meh. Leaning towards, like, I don't really like it. Like, I definitely would not publish that to Spotify, even though it sounds not so different from the actual versions of album number 1. But just with the mastery, or just with this mixing and mastery process in the first week using the AI by itself, which is all I did this time around, it improved every aspect of it. Well, it's not all I did. I talked about it a little bit before, but I added backup singers at a certain angle. I decided the angle, and I decided like the style of backup singer, and I added some different like small effects to them. And the deep audio I used, which was a copy of the guitar audio, I modified it in some certain ways. But both of those used the same like bass AI as the initial recordings. Yeah, so I modified very small things to make the bass sound more bassy and kind of wavy, and the backup singers to sound higher pitched and kind of wavy as well, or echoey. But other than that, I didn't change much of anything. So the AI did pretty well at improving my perception of how the song should sound. It's definitely more punky, way more instruments, an instrument like range, like a broader sound. Definitely sounds more like a punk feel or album. Definitely way more intense for those same kind of reasons. There's more energy, definitely. more noise because there's just more. There's 4 different audio sources going at the same time, with like different effects. So there's always a little bit of noise going on, as well as just like the base level of like background noise and white noise. But definitely it does a better job of accentuating it, and accentuating like the difference between noise and non-noise. A little bit more fun-cious, I would say, with the like trippy, wacky side vocals, and the more overall feel, a little bit more fun. But I think with this song, a neutral or maybe a slightly positive is as high as I'm gonna get. For other songs, it's way more fun, that are about more fun subjects on the surface. Let's see, entrancing, definitely way more entrancing, just with all those side effects. Just adding some amount of width and like echo and reverb and stuff. Those are the same thing, echo and reverb. But adding some like echo and some like phasing and whatnot definitely make a big difference. The final thing, in a bunch of different ways. So definitely more entrancing, and I did like directly take advice from this psychedelic thing, like a wide female vocals with a flanger. I use like sort of to the side, higher pitched vocals that were just a copy of my voice, just spread out into 2, and they kind of I think it's flanging or phasing or something. I forgot the term for it. But they kind of like wave a little bit. And I find that entrancing, mixed with the bass on the sides. And that bass definitely adds a deepness to it. And I think those 2 things together, the bass and the background singers, it kind of sounds like you're bobbing up, above and below water with your ears. Like you go below and you hear some siren voices calling you, and then you pop above and you hear more clearly, and you go below and then you hear the voices again, and then you like popping up and down. And I think the deep guitar kind of gives that water effect, while the water. Sorry, my phone went off. While the voices kind of sound like they're going above and below water as well, and you can make your own interpretations of how it sounds, but I find it to sound definitely deeper in this sense. But it could sound more deep by adding more depth, and maybe looking into ways to make the sound like vertically go up and down a little bit. Yeah. And then overall, I definitely think it sounds much more dynamic. Just a lot of different variations and differences in the sound, other than just my voice and how it changes. So yeah, the AI and my small changes made over the course of 1 week or 2 of learning, made big difference. Definitely sounds better than the first album I released, which can serve as sort of like a baseline or control or something. At some point I'll go remaster all of it, but I like that it exists as someone can go listen to that and be like, wow, he learned to be like a 500% better at mixing and stuff in album 2 than album 1. Hopefully I can get to that sort of point in the course of 11 more weeks. So along with that, and I may do that for the rest of the songs, who knows. I've been thinking about, like, if you close your eyes while you have headphones on, what, like, visual, like, space would there be while you're listening to the music? And I've definitely been thinking about this way more with all of the width talk and like distance. Like you can put your vocals farther away from like you, so there's like more echo and stuff, so it sounds like they're coming from farther away. And you can place instruments in different areas in like 3D space, so they sound like you're listening to a band, or like you're sitting in the drummer's position, or you're standing in the singer's position. So I need to think about over the whole album, what do I want people to experience, assuming they have like their eyes closed and they have headphones on. What is the space that they're kind of listening to and imagining? So I tried to as quickly and effectively sketch it out using PowerPoint tools and shapes and whatnot. And I came up with some of this before I did the mixing and mastering, and then I came up with some of this as I was like listening to it and thinking of like potential things I could do, and kind of narrowing it down and trying to base it off of the themes of the album and stuff. Now this is what I have so far in terms of that audio design, and it's probably going to translate to the visual design of the music video as well. This one, like me and my guitar, basically coming from like a box, a literally static box, in both senses of the term static, meaning that it doesn't move and that there's a lot of static inside of it. So like a TV basically, that takes up a good portion of somebody, like in front of somebody. So it sounds like I'm coming from some like small stage in front of you with your headphones on, and then I want it so there'll be like a direct source of sound, like from directly in front, that's like clear, maybe like a little bit fuzzy, like the AI sort of does, to make it sound like it's not just directly in front. But overall, it's going to be mostly coming from the front. And then the other effects and like echoes and additional voices and stuff will be like this, like cascading. It'll sound like they're like cascading outwards from the TV and like expanding into like bigger, like deeper and higher pitched sounds at the same time, and becoming more like blurry and more noisy like themselves, like they were like holograms projected much larger, like around you and like behind you and stuff. At the same time, I think the room is filling up with water, or the room is like halfway filled with water to the point where like your head is bobbing underneath occasionally, or like one or two of your ears are bobbing underneath, and kind of getting that like wavy feeling with the voices coming from underneath as well. And all of it, I think, does a good job of mixing together many of the themes of the album. And I think I can translate it fairly well into the music video. I've already been thinking of the general idea of the video, and I want there to be like a staticky TV, and like in a room, and a ceiling or wall that is blue like this with stars. And then the room will like change depending on the song, and then the soundscape will change a little bit depending on the song as well. But yeah. I even put some little fishies here just to represent that it's water. So let's listen to it. While that's happening, I'll go close my window so I can maybe sing the last verse after it's done. Actually, let me do that first, and I'll play the song for us. Bless you, Betty. Oh wow, I'm gonna be playing the song in a couple seconds. I thought I'd warn you. There's no fading in, I don't think. I forgot to add that, so it's just gonna kind of start. Anyway, this is a fully mixed and mastered version of this song. Well, in the like 2 hours that I spent just applying the AI and doing some small adjustments and changes. Anyway, let's listen to Attention on Brand.
Attention, what you know me is intoxifying. I'm through a sea another dimension. You're my favorite advertisement. On brand. I told you, but I know where the switch is. Do me a favor and delete that memory. I pointed this was all for attention, but you took every other part of me. On brand. I feel separated from what's inside my head. I'd rather dive into the glass instead than watch you lately. I feel it's underrated to let your demons win. When they look so much better in your skin, I can't contain it. On brand. On brand. On brand.
Oh, good stuff, good stuff. I really enjoy the changes it made, and definitely further things I want to continue to change about it and learn about it. Like for instance, I mean, there's a whole list in my head I haven't written down yet, but I have all the ideas, and if I listen to it, I can like pinpoint them all as I listen. But one of the big ones, I want to get that like echoey voice, like the chorus, and like have it increase or decrease depending on like if it's the pre-chorus or the chorus or what part of the song it is. So I have to learn how to modulate it like that, or use automation in some way and change the intensity of that particular like setting, or like how intense it is depending on how intense the song is at the moment. As much as I can learn that, and I played around with like every little knob and dial and then undid it at some point. Like I made a version of this that was just me changing every single thing and trying to make it sound good, and it sounded like absolute awful garbage at the end. And then I went back and just did the AI version. But I learned quite a lot about various aspects of it. The big focus was on width, though, and kind of developing a soundscape or like putting my headphones on and just adjusting a few small things that I knew what it was doing until it sounded okay. But yeah. Yeah, I don't want to sing the rest, but that whole song is just just that beat over and over again. Really wanted to focus at that time on moving the body and just getting more into it over time, and then slapping the guitar a little bit more intensity and a little harder. That translates into those like big scratches and stuff later on, and more of the other strings kind of playing and reverberating, even though I don't actually technically play them. I just kind of like smack them and they like buzz and add noise and stuff to the more intense parts. Just a way of adding like a dynamic intensity, just depending on how much I'm moving and how much I'm interacting with the guitar. I didn't really talk about the song much other than that. Its primary sort of themes are, for the specific song at least, are on the surface like alcohol and that aspect of looking into the like mirror and developing like a sense of self, or like an ideal self when it comes to playing the guitar and dancing and whatnot, by looking at the mirror and getting to that stage. I suppose the first album was more in the infancy stage, and this album's more in the 18-month-old onward, or like toddlerhood kind of stage of learning and growing, for the most part. So looking in the mirror a lot and learning how to move and like how to perform and stuff. It has been a massive source of thought and research and creativity and art over the last couple of years. And I've learned like way better how to like express with my hands and body and stuff while teaching and while just having conversations with people. And I think a big part of that was the amount of effort I was putting into doing that for guitar. And there's some crossover between the two. So yeah, there's that mirror aspect and the alcohol aspect. I don't think I've ever been an alcoholic. Not that I don't drink or anything, but more related to alcoholism I saw and like the effects of alcohol and stuff that I just wanted to explore a little bit. And I saw the relationship with like if you really get into like being the person in the mirror, like in the moment, mindful while you're playing guitar or dancing or whatever, that's similar to like really getting into the moment under the effects of alcohol, a type of drug that lowers your inhibitions, that sort of, it makes it easier to focus. I think like people like alcohol because of the way it changes their attention and changes their like behavior that comes from their like attention of what they're doing and how they're acting, and lets them just kind of act without having their minds wander and think about random stuff. It reduces the likelihood that those get in the way, and it makes it easier to just be in the moment. So definitely saw the similarities. Oh, and I was in the UK and everyone's drinking over there at a music festival, and everyone's drinking at music festivals, and it was just a lot on my mind. And then I got home and there's some people with alcohol problems because the only places to hang out in a college town are bars. So it's made its way into various songs of mine, even though it's not really a particular big personal issue of mine. It's had its moments in my life, but nothing too prolonged. So about like seeing, I try to use as much as like wordplay and stuff on those two things as possible, and then there's some other little relations to it as well. Let's see, like seeing another dimension, like you see double when you're under the effects of a drug, but you're also kind of seeing yourself from a different perspective, or a dimension in a mirror. And it's the time dimension as well, like you moving and changing, and like living, experiencing life. And then the first use of the word advertisement in writing the album. Let's see. Oh, blah 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 blah. And again here, just like I see another dimension, I'd rather dive into the glass instead. No, fun wordplay. Maybe it's more fun-cetious than I originally thought it was. Because that could be about diving into a glass, like you would usually hear in a song, or into the bottom of a glass or whatever, versus diving into like a mirror. And then probably the thought of letting your demons win arose from it's just relation to like being branded, and you know, demon stuff and pitchforks and brands and whatnot. Kind of fun little visual thing. Fun little wordplay here. And in the fourth verse, a little bit longer than the other verses, a little bit wackier, because I have to get my body more into it, and the lyrics get a little bit weirder too. But I enjoy, and it's more about giving yourself completely and the positives and negatives of it. It's not necessarily all a positive thing. Anyways, what else can I talk about? I think that was a wide variety of things. I originally had like at least like 6 or so more slides about attention that I pulled from random other classes. Excuse me. And bless me. But I tried to make it into something somewhat narrative. Well, I didn't put too much effort into it. I do want to kind of start thinking about the order of how I'm going to talk about things in my upcoming classes, and the things I can relate them to, like in the real world and art and whatnot, as much as possible. Yeah, it's given me a lot of things to think about this week, and this putting this video together, in terms of teaching, in terms of research, in terms of guitar and mixing and mastering and design and everything. And those are my 5 days of the week, being a teacher on Mondays and like planning educational stuff, being a researcher on Tuesdays, planning research stuff, being a musician, being a engineer, mixing and mastering, and being a designer. And I spend Saturdays kind of putting all of that together, Sundays resting and planning for the upcoming week. That's my first rough draft of a weekly goal-oriented summer agenda, at least. It went well first week. of putting it into effect. Album journal week 10 with basically zero preparation. I kind of did some of that stuff during that week. It was a very rough draft, sort of a pilot study version of it. And I didn't have any giant weekly thing to think about like I did this week with attention. So yeah, hopefully I can keep up that level of doing stuff and getting things accomplished and seeing the relationship between things up. Hopefully I can keep that up over the course of the summer and get an album. Honestly, even if I recorded like sitting down on this futon like I did for the first album and recording into this microphone with this guitar like I did for these recordings and just applying the effects that I applied here, it would already sound 2 or 3 points higher on like a 10-point scale than my first album. And with some tweaking and thinking about it more, I think it'll all be a lot more cohesive and good sounding in the end. I didn't do any of this nonsense for the first album. I did sort of think about it, and I think I made a list like this for like the music video, but not for the songs themselves. I spent a lot more time this album thinking about the order of everything and the overall feeling. And even though I didn't write all this stuff down until this week, it's all been on my mind. I've always tried to have some overall idea of how I wanted them all to sound together. Except for entrancing. That came about more from learning mixing and mastering stuff. Let's see, this I thought about this week. I say it's a big progress. When so I can like close my eyes and imagine like sort of the soundscape of the music as I'm putting it together and mixing and stuff, and try and tweak it a little bit to sound a little bit more like this, how I want it to look, how I want it to sound visually, if that makes sense. And I can like tweak one little setting in my mixing add-in, my VST, and oh, that made it sound a little bit more punky or a little bit more entrancing by changing that thing. And I can use all of this as a guideline now to narrow down, top down from what I want while continuing to build my skills. I did a bunch of other stuff, like planning stuff that I'm going to be talking about in further weeks. Learning ASL every day, working out every day, that's been a big thing, like an hour and a half. Protein shakes and everything, and like planning out my meals and stuff. Which is why I'm only doing like one type of work a day, like teaching or researching or something. That's my primary work focus for the handful of hours I work. All of this is new to me. Having weekly schedules, like preset chains and sequences for like how to make videos and stuff. I've just kind of done it in the past, but now I'm trying to like put together a formula for it. All slowly coming together, again from the top down, while I piece together bits and pieces of knowledge by spending little bits of time on each of the different individual subjects. And spending some time Saturdays as an artist, kind of thinking about how it all comes together. And making these videos, trying to kind of put it all together. Yep. My keys to learning and creating things quickly and efficiently, I'm trying to put to use. Anyways, I can't think of anything else to talk about. So, have a wonderful day, night, evening, morning, whatever it happens to be. See you next week.